All right, folks. It's Jerlene. I'm live with some folks. Give me just a moment to share this in a few spaces. If you want to share it anywhere, go ahead, take a moment to do that. Make sure I got this. Yeah. So it's Jerlene live from Long Beach the day before our primary election. And I'm going live with some friends so we can talk about Long Beach Politricks, what's going on in Long Beach, get some insight. What are some of our predictions? It's open up to folks if anybody wants to join us. I'm going to drop the link in the comments in just a moment. But it's Jerlene and I'm live with some friends. Okay, trying to find the right groups to drop into. All right. Hey, people. Jerlene live from Long Beach, mama with a voice, not afraid to use it. Been going live for the last couple months talking about local politics, aka local Politricks. Decided to bring some other folks into the conversation. Tomorrow is the last day to cast your ballot. You can vote at a voting center, you can vote in person, or you can drop your ballot in a ballot drop box, or you can take your ballot to a voting center. So got a few folks here with me tonight, and what I would like everyone to do is just introduce yourself. We're going to start with Ben. Hey, Ben, how you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. My name is Ben Hauck. I'm an organizer, activist, all sorts of different roles in that area, but I'm also currently the Southern California Vice Chair for the California Democratic Party Progressive Caucus. So I guess that's the key title right now.
Go ahead, Elliot. Who are you?
Hi, thank you for having me, Jerlene. I'm a local activist. I'm currently the chair of Our Revolution, a local progressive organization. We were established by Bernie Sanders, and we're basically the continuation of that movement. Thanks for having me on the show.
Woohoo! And Senay, who are you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Senay Kenfe. I'm a local resident, organizer of Thoughts and People here in Long Beach, born and raised in the central neighborhood. I'm glad to be here on this show and excited to engage in conversation with people who live in this lovely city that we share.
Woohoo! All right, let's just get into this. This has been a very exciting election season. Honestly, I don't think I have been this engaged. I mean, I've worked on campaigns, but I don't think I've been this aware about what's been going on. Ben, I know you have been paying attention beyond Long Beach. Get us started on this conversation.
Well, looking across the state, obviously we have a lot of statewide races we're dealing with from, governor on down. And to be perfectly honest, most of those races are just going to be won easily by the incumbent. There's nobody legit challenging Newsom, even though it'd be great to have somebody challenging him from the left. It's just not happening. So those races are not going to be all that exciting. So kind of looking outside of Long Beach, there definitely are going to be quite a few interesting campaigns in the state legislature, from the Assembly and the Senate. And then there's going to be some really interesting races in the city of Los Angeles, where, of course, while we're not technically in the city of Los Angeles, those races are going to have a big impact on us and on all of our comrades around the area. So one race that I'd kind of want to start off and really highlight is for mayor of Los Angeles. And one of the main reasons here is that we have a anti-abortion, former Republican, I'd just call him a current Republican, billionaire developer who has spent $23 million plus of his own money to try to buy this election. He has been flooding the airwaves. He's been sending out mass mailers. It's impossible to turn on the TV or to go anywhere or turn on the radio without hearing one of his ads. Nobody else in the race is spending even a 10% of what he is spending. So in essence, what we have here, even though he is not a Democrat, he is running as a Democrat, and he's spending so much money that he put himself into either the top spot in the race or at least a dead heat with the person who I think at the beginning of the race, most people expected was going to be able to win this thing pretty clearly, which was Karen Bass. And unfortunately in this race, Karen Bass kind of saw that a lot of people were heading towards the center and talking about adding more police and pro-police and talking about all of the crime and madness in the city of Los Angeles and the need for more law and order. And unfortunately, she got kind of pulled into that direction, which kind of left the left part of the race without anybody really there. So there's actually an activist organizer, Gina Viola, who decided to enter the race. She originally was going to support Karen Bass, but when Karen Bass started tacking towards the center, especially on the policing issues, she decided she was going to run. But at the end of the day, I'm supporting her. A lot of leftists are supporting her. You know, DSA LA is supporting her. Knock LA Ground Game, they're all behind her. But, you know, she's a grassroots candidate who doesn't have a lot of name recognition, doesn't have a lot of money, and this is a very expensive race to win it. So while I'm hopeful she'll get a nice chunk of votes, at the end of the day, this is likely going to come down to Rick Caruso, the billionaire Republican, and Karen Bass, the kind of former progressive, who I think a lot of people have hopes that she will kind of go back to her roots as a, you know, community organizer and more of a progressive leaning type candidate once she hopefully wins this race. So above all, anybody who's listening here tonight who has not voted yet, or if you can tell your friends, tell your family, you've got to defeat Rick Caruso. What we need to make sure doesn't happen tomorrow is that he gets to 50%. If you get 50% plus one, you're in automatically. There is no top two race. So we need him to stay below 50%. When we're looking at some of these voter turnout numbers, it's frightening how low it is, especially how low it is amongst Black voters, amongst Latino voters, amongst younger voters. And so the people who are going to be most impacted by these commercials that Caruso is running and about this like fear over crime, which is not at historic highs and which everybody is blowing way out of proportion, those are going to be your older voters. And those are the people who are turning out in big numbers and turning in their votes. So we need young people to turn out. We need leftists and progressives and our Latino brothers and sisters and our Black brothers and sisters to get out there and vote. And whether you vote for Karen Bass or whether you vote for Gina Viola or anybody else, vote and don't vote for Caruso. We've got to beat him, make sure he doesn't get to 50%.
But before we start talking about Long Beach stuff, how whoever is elect, or how much impact will the mayoral selection in Los Angeles impact our city? I mean, does it matter to us? Do we care?
It does. I mean, we're, you know, bordered up against the city of Los Angeles. A lot of the types of policies that we see in policing and in other areas tend to affect all of the cities around it. When it comes to things of climate, obviously climate knows no borders, you know, so the things that the city of Los Angeles is doing has an impact everywhere. And if we have a Republican mayor coming in, you know, obviously the city of Los Angeles is a weak mayor system, so the city council is where most of the power is, but that does not mean the mayor doesn't have a pretty significant influence on what happens in the city. And from him, you know, turning the city of Los Angeles into a giant high-end shopping mall to drastically increasing the LAPD budget, all of those things are going to have negative impacts on LA and all the surrounding areas of Los Angeles.
Senay, you know, as someone who ventures outside of Long Beach, I mean, I don't go anywhere, but but someone who actually, you know, conducts business in Los Angeles, how you feeling about LA before we get into Long Beach? How you feeling about it?
I think Caruso will lead mid 40s. And it's not so much don't vote for Caruso, it's don't vote for Kevin De Leon. I mean, the reality is that, you know, there is, you know, Karen is an establishment candidate. She's not a grassroots candidate. And that's why the establishment Latinos support her. And the reality is that there wasn't enough. There's a lot of intergenerational gaps with respect to any identity politics that exist. And so a lot of the older Latinos, as you can see, Villaraigosa, Dolores, a bunch of them, they support Karen because they know her from her time in the state legislature. So she's an establishment person. She's an establishment Democrat. That said, when Kevin and Kimberly and all them, they tried to storm the party and shift it in a certain way. There's a lot of people that they don't forget that. And so because they don't forget that, where a lot of the, original maybe, inter-ethnic solidarity would come about, it doesn't exist in this case. And the irony of that is that it becomes this age difference thing, right? So older 40, older 50 plus of whatever ethnic group, maybe they'll support, the more moderate Democrat in this case, which is Karen, to Ben's point. But, Kevin's going to probably get about 10, 12%. And that percentage is what's going to really hurt Karen, in terms of being able to win outright. I never thought she was going to win outright. I'm a supporter of Karen Bass, just to be clear. But I'm also a pragmatic and realistic person. I think that ultimately, if the more conservative to moderate elements, i.e. older groups of people and these other ethnic groups that are, a part of the LA fabric, if they don't come out in November, Caruso will win, without a doubt. I don't perceive young white liberal people making an impact vote-wise on this race enough to shift it this way or that way. I think that was actually, to me, I think actually that was the reason why Karen probably shifted to the center, is because her progressive achievements of yesteryear is unfamiliar to a lot of, under 30 people. They don't know her for, the child care and a lot of the things that she did when she was in legislature. So, probably very, she had to adjust. And, unfortunately, she adjusted just around the same time as, a lot of conservative center leaning people who are white probably realized Buscaino's not our guy. He has no name recognition. And so very wisely, you saw they got him up out of there. And, Caruso jumped in. And I knew when he was meeting up with Reardon and, all that kind of types of people from before, they probably, pulled him aside and say, hey, there's an opportunity here. Because Buscaino being too, this is a very much a law and order cycle. And I think that's to the point Ben was saying about incumbents. And it's being reflected in the polling. But I think people said Buscaino being like ultra cop, RoboCop man, that's not going to work. And so they pulled him out. But they said, let's get a rich, a lot of poor people, a lot of ethnics, a variety of identity politics. They have this like strongman persona that really they gravitate towards. This, you can see this in the Philippines with Duterte. You can see this with Putin in Russia. You can see obviously with Trump, a lot of Latinos, a plurality of Latinos voted for Trump. That's undeniable. And so it's that's on the macro scale. So on a micro scale, somebody like a Caruso, that very much fits into this idea of what people think, this is a moment of weakness, it's a moment of pandemic, blah, 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 social disorder. Let's gravitate towards the strong man, which in this case is the money man. And so a money man will appear because people do a lot of polling and they see what people, whether you call them low information, low propensity voters, whatever case you want to call them, they know what people gravitate towards. And this is one of those election cycles where that's what people allege that they want. A certain amount of people allege that they want. And so, that's what we're seeing right now in the election. And I do think that is, there is bleedage, something of the effect here in Long Beach. Maybe not to the same extent, but there is some commonalities.
That's what I was about to ask. I was about to lead into that next, ask like what's common. But before I do that, you had mentioned something, Ben, about how governor wise, how there's no excitement there. What happened to all them recall people? Where'd they go?
Once that recall was defeated, it was basically the best campaign spending that could have been done to reelect Gavin Newsom. As soon as that failed in big numbers, it was over, and everybody knew it. No Republican was going to be able to run, and get anything against him. So he's just going to walk into that through that election. There's just no challenge there. You know, I voted for the Peace and Freedom and Green Party candidate, John Thompson Parker. You know, but if he gets, 5% of the vote, that'd be pretty miraculous. So not to be negative at all, he's a great candidate. But these big statewide races in the state of California, the amount of money that you need to put together a viable race, it's just obscene. So the idea that any grassroots candidate, not representing big money and establishment power is going to make a run at Gavin Newsom is just crazy. And a Republican winning almost anything statewide in California is, I wouldn't say impossible. You never know. But it's just difficult to do, which is why Rick Caruso is running as a Democrat. If he ran as a Republican, he was going to lose, and hopefully enough voters realize that he is a Republican. But if it goes top 2, or even now that he doesn't hit that 50% number.
So it's 16 candidates for governor. Okay. Y'all ready to, yeah, let's see. So let's kind of work our way backwards, or work our way home. Sheriff, what y'all feeling on that? Everyone's shaking their head.
I have feelings, but I'll let somebody else go first.
Well, look, I'm gonna start.
Never forget that Knock LA said that Villanova was the progressive candidate. You know what? That term is so nonsense to me. You know what? Sometimes there has to be some type of institutional support around a reformer, because as you can see, the culture is not going to change when the outside elements push in somebody. It's not working with Gascon. It never was going to work with Villanueva. You know what I mean? They should. In hindsight, I'm sure. I don't know if people who are quote unquote progressive are having that conversation. I doubt it. But they should have went with Jim McDonald, because Jim McDonald actually was trying to, do some reform that and couldn't get enough support. Sorry, wasn't getting enough support because of the reform. You wouldn't get no Lee Baca investigation. You wouldn't get no Paul Tanaka investigation if those type of elements weren't there. But that's neither here nor there. I think that this is going to be the same thing happening again, where it's like, some races you have to put a moderate in, because they will cannibalize and completely remove the instruments that a quote unquote progressive or reformer person who's too out there will be able to do internally within that type of machine. So knowing that, I'm supporting Cecil Rambo. I don't think that he's the best candidate. I think that he's a candidate that could probably deliver the best results. And for me, I don't want to just be right. I want to get some type of results. So supporting him, I think him or Eric Strong have the most likely chances of making it past the runoff. But I actually think that Villanueva probably will win outright. That's my personal opinion. But I would love to, for it to go to the distance.
I agree with you. I was talking to someone earlier. I believe Villanueva will win. People like him. People like him. I think more people like him than people dislike him. And the one thing that I found very interesting when he ran against McDonald, I actually like McDonald. I liked him as a person. I know people were not happy with the way that he kind of left Long Beach, but I was paying attention to him as a sheriff. But what's interesting, the leadership in Long Beach that supported Villanueva, they hosted fundraisers for him. It was about this Latino Democrat. This Latino Democrat is going to be sheriff, and he turned out to be like a number 45. And it's really interesting because they're silent. They've been silent in this. And I actually found a flyer that has the name of the Latino leadership that was supporting Villanueva. And my thing on accountability, you supported him. Why aren't you holding him accountable now? And you're gonna find somebody else to run against him, but you're not gonna hold him accountable. So I've been waiting to say that. Now I said my piece. Now we can move on. What are your thoughts on Elliot? What are your thoughts on Sheriff?
Yeah, I just want to second that, because I got the invitation too. I got the invitation to go have brunch with him and give him my money when I'm barely making my landlord his money. oh, do I have $50 to $100 to help this man who paid $500,000 to get on the ballot, or however much? It's a lot of money to run for sheriff. It's not like $1,000 like most other seats. It's a really hard to access. You have to have 1%ers behind you to run for sheriff. So he has the money, and they asked me, someone washing dishes, to pay the landlord, to go donate to him. And, I just, now from what I can tell, the Los Angeles Sheriff Department is openly involved in a gang. There are people who have tattoos, who have been assaulted by the gang. He is the head of the sheriff department. He is now a leader of the gang. If he doesn't have an open investigation and a report and heads rolling, then that means he is a leader of a gang. And I just thought, this is a state of crisis. This is a state of crisis at this point.
Going back to the leadership that supported him to be elected.
Absolutely. And I mean, should we name names or just
didn't do their homework? They didn't do their homework. Who are your picks for sheriff?
I don't even know where to start, but I know a gang leader when I see there's a gang. There's leader. I don't have a pick. I don't know who's righteous.
You're not gonna pick your former Long Beach police chief?
I mean, I haven't. None of them inspire me. And do I think, oh, they're in the name of justice? They honestly understand what level of corruption, of wickedness. I mean, this is pure wickedness. You have a gang running the sheriff department of Los Angeles. I mean, this is, you don't get much more evil than that.
We made that point. But you don't have any recommendations moving forward. Okay, so Sheriff, someone asked a question, and I know I'm just going to post it up here. This says, why isn't Mayor of LA on my ballot, but LA Sheriff is? We are LA County here in Long Beach. And I mean, the difference is one's the city, one's the county. The sheriff is county-wide. The mayor is only Los Angeles. Yet that is a really good question, because I people who are not familiar with our structure of local government, there are people who actually think that the mayor of LA is our mayor. So
county supervisor is more important than the mayor.
Yes.
And just, I mean, you got to think, like, there's 4 million people in the city of Los Angeles. There's over 12 million people in the county of Los Angeles. So, effectively, to Ben's point earlier about the way that LA goes is the way that, like, the state and ultimately the nation goes. The county seats here are very much important. When we had what's his face, Don Kanabi, as our county supervisor, not to be age out, but like there was a lot of things that impacted Long Beach because of him being from Cerritos.
Yep.
So
we benefited.
We benefited by proximity. So I think that's why it's so important for Long Beach people. I know we're on an island here, and we're the biggest city in America that doesn't have its own that doesn't have its own county. We recognize these things. We're deprived of this. To your point. That said, do you want me to be controversial? I know this is your show.
This is. I want people to have real conversation.
There's a mayoral candidate who has the county supervisor seat in mind.
In our Long Beach race.
Correct.
I believe you.
Without doubt.
And we can get to that in just a moment. Okay.
And that's why it's so important not to vote for that person. But anyways,
you can tell us more in just a moment, because I'm
yeah.
So actually, someone made a comment. Senay, I'm always interested in your analysis. Thanks for coming on. So I don't know who Facebook user is. Whoever it is, it doesn't show on the. It does. It's probably someone watching who's not even doesn't even have an account on Facebook. Okay. Any of the other races that we should be? I mean, we have all these judges. I'm like, I was looking at websites last night. I'm like, I don't even know where. I'm like, eeny, meeny, miny. I like the sound of their name.
Yeah, so I'd say there are some good candidates there. And one group is a group of 4 women who are known as the Defenders of Justice. And the Defenders of Justice, let me get all of their names. And I've actually worked a lot with Carolyn G.M. Park. She's amazing. She's one of the 4. That's in 118. And then in 60, it's Anna Raytano. In 67, it's Elizabeth Lashley Haynes. And then in 70, it's Holly Hancock. So those are the defenders of justice. We can get some amazing public defenders, some amazing attorneys in there. Highly recommend those 4 women.
Okay, I just dropped the link in the comments to the Defenders of Justice. Someone sent that to me as well, so I've been sharing that out. So thank you for that. Any other thoughts on judges?
I just want to add that one thing I noticed, and I hope as a community, especially now that we're talking, that maybe as a community that we can come up with some sort of an endorsed list, because justice is where a lot of the issues happen, a lot of the unfairness. I have no ideas who these judges are, and it makes a big difference who your judge is. It makes a world of difference. And there are some people who are on the right cause in this system where there's so much. We were just talking about the sheriff, so much to work through. It makes a big difference. And I wish that we had on our end, our revolution, our little progressive group had a well thought out research list. And just as a community, I just want to share as community folks, Jerlene, Senay, Ben, I hope that next time we can, there's a discussion beforehand so we can have a well-researched ballot to really try to help people, in a judicial sense. So I just want to share that vision, that opportunity moving forward.
Before we move on to more conversation, this was just shared about the LA County Board of Supervisors reportedly paid $82 million in lawsuit settlements for sheriffs' incorrigible behavior under the incumbent's watch. So that's so folks that are watching that are like, well, why shouldn't I vote for him? Well, they're dealing away. But there you go. There you go.
The progressive candidate.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting though, when we think about our former police chief and the amount of money that was paid out in settlements. But anyway, all right. What about assembly? Oh, well, let's see. I'm gonna be shameful. Actually, I feel shameful because I've been having this conversation. Like, here's my blank ballot, y'all. Don't be shaking your head at me, Senay. Yes, it's blank. I'm gonna fill it out after I hear y'all out. So here's, we got Secretary.
I voted for Al Austin.
Okay, you're like, let's just go straight to assembly. All right, assembly, go ahead. Go for it. Tell us more.
I voted for Al Austin. I don't believe in nepotism or dynastic aspirations. So that other person, it was a joke. Somebody moves from Huntington Beach into the area just to run for election. I live in the 6th district. We're already dealing with a carpetbagger as our council person right now. Unfortunately, the Long Beach Post didn't exert any of their time or energy in monitoring our council person who family lives in the 7th district but somehow rents an apartment in the 6th district. And so, people voted how they voted, and that's how we have what we have. But with respect to the assembly, I think that there's only one person who actually has any experience with respect to being a politician. I think that there's commonalities that, people go through these purity tests and they put candidates through these purity tests that their own friend groups and, families never have to go through. And I think that, again, if the idea is that you're going to be right, then, hey, have at it. If the idea is that you want to get, 80% of the results that behoove the communities that you allege to serve, I'm going with McDonnell Douglas's own Al Austin. That's who I voted for. That's who my family voted for the 69th, yes. The other seat was between Mr. Mike Gibson and Fatima, and I'll leave that to our lovely.
Let our revolution.
I don't live in that district, so I can't speak to it.
Elliot, so you're here, part of our revolution. I know our revolution endorsed some folks in those races. Who did y'all endorse?
So in the I'm sorry, the 69th, right? Is that the one that
Yes.
we were just the first one we were speaking of?
Well, both of them with the 69th and what's the other district?
The
It's
70th.
the 70th.
Oh,
It's the top.
the 65. 65.
Yeah,
Sorry.
So it's
65 is
somewhere.
North Long Beach. Okay. So let's start with 8070. So we actually chose not to endorse. We did get endorsement forms from some candidates, but none of them really appeal to our values.
You don't even have to go into all that depth. Just tell us who y'all endorse.
I would agree with the nepotism, but who we did support was Fatima in the. I'm sorry, I always forget the number. What was it?
65.
65. Yeah, we supported Fatima because she shares our values, most especially when it comes to the climate change issue, the air pollution issue, the fact that people get cancer from breathing the air, that our children are losing their lung capacity, or now adults. I mean, how long has these refineries been here causing asthma, cancer, global warming? And we've known it the whole time. So Fatima demonstrates the courage that we want to see of people standing up to the oil industry. And that's her biggest attack against Mike Gibson. I know he's made some comments about her headdress. I believe that's affiliated with her religion. Insinuating maybe she's not from here or something. But I know she's dedicated to uplifting the lives of the children, and she takes climate change seriously. And she's a scientist willing to stand up to the oil industry, and she has the guts that we're looking for. So that's why we decided to endorse her.
Okay. And so you said you did not do 69?
No, we didn't. I think we found that there was some nepotism. We're not trying to participate.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, Ben?
So 69, it was a very rare moment where I actually didn't fill in a single bubble.
Wow. Okay.
I almost never do that. I always feel that there's going to be a candidate who's going to be better than the others. And the nepotism that everybody's talking about, absolutely. I hate the fact that daddy just hands off a elected position to his son. I just think that should not happen. Al Austin's not the worst dude in the world, but definitely doesn't reflect my more leftist socialist values. And there's just really nobody in the race. Janet Foster, she's not horrible, but she's not going to win. She doesn't have a chance in that race. It's either going to be Lowenthal or Austin. So for me, it just came down to not making a decision. Now, when we come to the general, will I dig a little bit deeper and maybe make a decision there? Yeah, I'll do that. 65, no brainer here for me. My activism started with environmental activism, heading out to Standing Rock. At the end of the day, if a candidate is taking massive amounts of money from fossil fuel industry and acting in their interest, that person is dead to me. Gibson takes a ton of money from the oil industry. That district has some of the worst air in the entire nation. People are getting sick and are dying because of the air in that district. You take oil money, you'll never, ever, ever get my support. Fatima is a courageous, grassroots candidate, not taking corporate money. She's running a hell of a race. It's a tough race. She's having a lot of money spent against her. Gibson has said some really terrible things. When he was yelling at an activist who asked a question, he then went on to say that she wasn't from here, just trying to use scare tactics against her religion. It's just disgusting. So I'm completely against Gibson, and I am 100% behind Fatima, and I donated to her campaign. I'm a monthly contributor. That one's going top 2. The legislature races, you can't win straight out. So there's only 2 people in that race. So it's going top 2. So they're both going to the general. This point, would love to see Fatima, would be amazing to see her beat him in the primary. But even just being close, I think would create a ton of momentum for her campaign. So yeah, 100% behind Fatima.
Wow. I'm gonna reserve my comments on this one. I am with you all about the whole family dynasty. No. It's like, where you been, bruh? Where you been? I ain't seen you. I have had an opportunity to, connect with all the other candidates. I'm in agreement. Some of them just ain't gonna win. So, gotta choose wisely where that vote's gonna go. So, all right. I'm gonna jump up to United States Representative. So we have is anyone running? We have 44. and 42. So there's 3 candidates in the 44th. And I think it's 6 candidates in the 42nd.
Sounds about right.
Something like that. I had to pull out. I'm in the 44th. Where are you all located? Are you in the 40?
I'm 44.
44?
I voted for Barragan.
Barragan?
Yep.
And she's currently in that seat even after redistricting, because before it was the 47th. It was something.
46, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thoughts on that? Well, either the 44th or the 42nd, because the 42nd, our current mayor is running. Senay is like, I'm gonna be quiet on this one. We got
live in this city,
Reverend,
right?
we got Reverend William Moses Somerville.
Yep.
We have Joaquin Beltran, and then I can't tell you who else.
Yeah,
I
so
think
for me,
Matthews, right? The perennial candidate.
Matthews. Yeah, the
small town, small junior college USA. That guy's been running. I mean, come on, man.
I got one of his books on my bookshelf.
I think I took a class with him a while back.
And this is one I have some thoughts on.
All right, come on, get with it. Let's roll with it. What you got?
So in 44, I voted for Nanette Barragan because she's pretty good. She's not perfect, but she's pretty good. She's fairly progressive. She votes the right way more often than not. Nobody's going to be able to beat her in that race. She's just going to walk right in. 42 is one of the most frustrating races for me. It's going to likely come down to Garcia versus Garcia or Garcia versus a Republican, Robert Garcia. He appears to be leading in terms of fundraising. He has a lot of support from the establishment. It would surprise me if he doesn't. I don't know that he'll get over 50% because of the number of people in the race, but he certainly will be the top vote getter. So for me, the question is who's going to come in behind? I'm supporting the Reverend William Moses Somerville. I was actually kind of disappointed in our group, Our Revolution, who endorsed Peter Matthews. He's not going to win. I love Peter. He's a wonderful, lovely man. He's been running forever. He can't win. So if you have 3 relatively progressive candidates on the left and they split up whatever left vote there is, then you have Robert Garcia, who there's obviously a lot of things going on there. You know, he's been really great with me when I was working on public banking. He was very supportive of that. He's
been working for this moment for the last 8 years.
I know.
Say that out loud.
I know. But, you know, so if you want to challenge Robert Garcia from the left, you need to have your left fully consolidated, fully concentrated. You need all those votes in one place. And William Moses Somerville came out early to run for this race. I think he's done a good job on this race. But Peter's going to pull off a little bit. A couple other candidates are going to pull off a little bit. And most likely, fingers crossed, William's able to slide into that second spot. But most likely, we're going to have Robert Garcia versus Christina Garcia or Robert Garcia versus the Republican who will just scrape together whatever Republican votes are there. So kind of a frustrating race.
Thoughts? Senay, what are you walking around, Senay?
I was waiting for Elliot to.
Oh, go ahead, Elliot.
To correct Ben for his hour.
No, I agree with Ben's assessment of what went down. You know, we did support Peter Matthews. I mean, it was a tough race. They both agreed on everything. It really came down to who was the more familiar with who. Peter Matthews helped form Our Revolution. He is sort of like a Bernie Sanders in that way that he's always been running consistently with the same message before it was popular. Loses often. Bernie's lost a lot, including both at the times he's ran for president, right? Like Bernie's okay with some defeat, and that's a big part of the movement. I don't know. I agree. I like what they both had to offer. And it looks like Robert's on his way to fulfill his Superman fantasy and representing us in Washington.
Senay.
Oh, I don't identify as a progressive, so I can't speak to the nature of that vote within that group.
Tonight, I'm still trying to figure out what progressive means. So I've asked for a definition repeatedly. I still don't understand. So
It means
continue.
it means progressively losing. But I think that as Mr. Matthews will tell you, because at least Bernie was a mayor and a current sitting senator, he's had opportunities to affect change. Sometimes I just don't know what people want. To Ben's point, like, you know, I don't live in the district, so it didn't really matter. But like Somerville did come out super early, so it's like, you know, what was the point of, you know, even the Soviets, like pre-World War II, like they had the concept of a popular front, you know. So you saw like, you know, whether it was Spanish Revolution, you know, during the time of France, like you had like, hey, let's get together with the center left groups and try to consolidate with, you know, the power apparatus so that we can affect things in, you know, in our the pathway that we want them to. Here in the American the dynamic, it's just like, let's just keep losing. Like, let's lose. Let's be 60 plus and be like, I was right. You know, hey, to me, okay, I don't want to be rude. I know people watch these things and then they clip it up later and they send videos of things people said on Jerlene's show. But I'll just say this. In terms of the environment, nothing will ever change in LA County, ever. And I'll tell you why. It's because here is a rare opportunity where you have unions and big business who work hand in hand. So until $242 billion worth of Chinese goods stops coming out of the port of Los Angeles and LA, the environment is irrelevant. And unfortunately, tragically, in the minds of most people. So when so knowing that, being realist and knowing that, and that's a tough pill. You know, it's interesting when I find candidates who try to create single issue reasons for their platforms. Like, I'm changing the environment. It's like, are you changing the environment? Do you really think you're going to change the environment? Like, do you know how much money ILWU is going to send out against you? Do you know how much money that fossil fuel people are going to send out against you? Like, I don't know. Like, I think if we could push Mario Cordero to like have, you know, some cleaner trucks or, you know, less diesel engines in the ocean, maybe I'm just like, maybe I'm, you know, I burnt out on the dream. I don't know. I'm fair enough to, you know, concede to that. I don't really see when I see people who have those types of runs, I'm like, oh, okay, you don't actually want to win. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think that like Robert Garcia, you know, he's more malleable than the other candidates. Does that necessarily mean that I believe because he's a more malleable person, because he was the mayor here, that he'll listen to everything I tell him to do and do everything I say? No, I don't think that. But I do think, for one, the Southeast LA person, I mean, they don't even have 300,000 people that live in that area. So there's no way that someone from that area is ever going to win. I don't want to be rude to the lovely people of Southgate and, you know, Cudahy and Maywood and blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying, like, you know, when a city like Long Beach is a part of your district, that no one from your area is going to win against a Long Beach candidate. And so does that mean that organizers and activists should spend more time pushing, you know, whoever is to be the presumptive candidate towards the way that they want to? Maybe. I don't know. That's a conversation about tactics that can be had offline. But, you know, being right just is not enough. I think Karen Bass spoke about that last week in her LA Times profile. Why she stopped going to Cuba, you know, why she stopped talking about Fidel Castro, because she realized that, oh, great, I'm a part of Community Coalition and we're being completely isolated by donors because of these comments that I was making in the early 80s, you know. And, you know, that's just the reality of the pragmatism that comes to you as you age.
Wow. Any more thoughts on our United States representatives, candidates?
Jerlene, my phone is about to die, and I need to go give it a charge, or I may end up dropping out. I just want to give a forewarning, especially because I already dropped out twice. But I hope I never lose the hope. I love. We got to keep the hope alive. I love the dream. I love the vision. I want to see more candidates go to Cuba.
We need
I
people
love.
like you. We need people like you, Elliot. We have to have people like you to help keep the rest of us a little balanced. So we have to have you. Okay.
And at the end of the day, like,
all right. So,
I was
attorney.
just gonna say, I've worked with Robert Garcia a bit on a number of different issues, and I think he would actually be a pretty good congressperson at the end of the day. So he does listen. He is malleable. As Senay said. So yeah, I think if it ends up turning out that way, which is the most likely scenario, I think he'll end up being a fairly good congressperson. So.
Well, we know that he's been working toward this for a really long time. For those of us that have been paying. I really wish I was a betting person, because I would have a lot of money now, because I made a bet on this probably about 6 years ago. Should have put some money to it. All right. So attorney, did I spell auditor right? Auditor and prosecutor. What you got? What you got, Ben? Or Elliot, let's start with you just in case we lose you. What you got, Elliot?
Attorney Jerry Shipsky, she is a fighter. If you look back on the footage to when she was in the city council, she was talking about gentrification before that was a buzzword. She was talking about how the city was selling or gifting basically their developer buddies and Bob Foster's donors these buildings at very pennies on the dollars. What I experienced and lived through as somebody who struggles to stay in downtown and not get pushed out by all the buildings that Robert Garcia and friends have, and Bob Foster. When I think about what I go through as a renter, Jerry Shipsky was the one fighting against gentrification before that became a buzzword. I really want to give her some props. I'm happy to have her be a city attorney. I want to see someone who is going to question things, challenge things, look over the books. Maybe they might notice that the auditors have, somebody on the payroll, collecting over $1 million unfunded. Jerry Shipsky, she's not someone you want to play with or mess with or try to do little BS little games. So I really give her some credibility that I don't think that I've ever really publicly expressed, and I want to share that with you all.
Woohoo! What else y'all got on? I think we just need change. I'm not for the continuation of the status quo. Although, since Jerry was a former council person, someone may consider her to be part of the status quo. I was a little concerned about some of her endorsements and the whole connection with the getting the fire and like the alignment that came along with that. But I'm looking forward to change. What about you, Ben?
Also on Shipsky on that race, auditor, I ended up going with Daniel Miles, but I don't know. I'm kind of questioning that vote at this point. I don't know that there was a good option there necessarily. And then prosecutor George Moyer is absolutely, the when Senay said, call himself a progressive, like I'm kind of falling into that. Like what the heck does that even mean? But if you're talking about the left choice in that race, it's George Moyer.
It's George. So tell me a little bit more why George, because just today I've had multiple people just hit me up and they're like, Liddy or Moyer. And I'm like, I like them both. I mean, I've talked to them. They're both very approachable. They are open. They communicate. I don't know how that translates in the realm of prosecutor, because I don't understand that enough. I know I'm not about, I got some challenges with the current person. So why George though? Why George, Ben?
So did Elliot drop off? Because he could probably speak to it a little bit better.
Yeah, we lost Elliot.
Okay. Yeah, because our revolution endorsed George.
Okay.
I am familiar enough with him, and then also some people who I trust are supporting him. So that's kind of the case that I would make on my side. I did meet him. I was at a meeting, and his vision for the city, he's more decarceral in his approach. He doesn't believe that, for some of these, minor offenses, we should be locking people up. And that vision, as opposed to, the others running in that race, is really what I see. I'm more of a, abolishing the police, defunding the police type mentality. And I know people have some issues with some of those phrases. But at the end of the day, our policing system is violent, and it doesn't solve crime. It doesn't reduce violence. It increases it. And we need to be, looking at decarceration and not locking people up, and not having our supposed public safety systems causing more harm than they're doing. So, anybody who's going to come forth and be, decarceral in their nature, that's going to be somebody who I would support. So that's why I'm supporting George.
What about you, Senay?
George is a cool dude. I don't think he'll win. In terms of who I supported, I think that you have to be loyal to the commitments that you make. Just for full disclosure, I've worked a lot with Mr. Halpert on a lot of these diversion programs prior to the whole, Gascon thing. Everyone wants to be the progressive DA of the year. Larry Krasner's doing great work over there in Philadelphia, but talking years ahead. I'm a product of the whole gang war. We were really impacted. Late 90s, early 2000s by the gang violence. Some of it, the ways that the carceral state engaged with it, a lot of the ways I don't agree with, right? I'm not going to deny that. That said, I also recognize that my necessarily personal viewpoint, it doesn't necessarily resonate with everyone in my community. So I'm on a neighborhood association, CNAC, the Central Neighborhood Advisory Committee, which is the oldest neighborhood association in the central neighborhood, Central Area, Long Beach. And, I'm with some elders, some seniors, and for them, their relationship with public safety is different than mine.
Yep.
A lot of them, they say, we're living in an area that was heavily impacted by the gang violence, and Doug helped root that out. That's not up for debate. That's a statistical response. I don't know if I necessarily agree with some of the tactics. I also know what a system and a structure looks like. I know that sometimes you come into a space and it takes a couple years for the space to become your own. I'm seeing recently the conversations about the sex things, the gay sex things that, they're trying to place on Mr. Halbert. I don't think that that's fair because that was happening for a long time prior to him and before, irregardless of, who was in office. Do I think it was right? No, because criminalization of sex workers today obviously is not in vogue as it was, 5-10 years ago. I think that in terms of, okay, let's just I'll just cut through being polite.
Yeah,
right?
just stop being politically correct.
I won't be politically correct. I supported Doug Halpert because the same reason why I supported Jim McDonald is that I think that if a character like Moyer was to come in, institutionally there would be a mutiny, much like that's happening right now in Gascon's office, that is literally shutting down and disrupting the entire judicial system in LA. Like, you have literal cases, Nipsey Hussle, murderer, we're talking 3 years now, and that's not being tried because of the fact that there are certain DAs that are like, hey, we don't agree with assistant DAs who are like, we don't agree with this mandate about how we should engage with sentencing. And so therefore we're just going to keep rescheduling and keep holding up court cases until either, I don't know, they hope that he's finally recalled or he loses in the next general election. I'm not sure, but it's pretty much caused a complete standstill in our legal system, and I don't agree with that. And so, because of the reality of that, while on a much micro scale here in Long Beach, I don't believe that we would deal with that. Doug's well liked. Everybody knows that. Like he's the establishment's guy, and I don't
Get it right. Who's the establishment guy? Get that part right.
no, I'm not going to deny. Come on, you can't be in office that long and not be well liked. And so, because of that, he's well liked. He gets some of the results I want. I agree with. I'm big in the reentry, work, and a lot of the people I know that are going through, they're going through in a system that it doesn't even look like that on the LA side. Not even just because Gascon's in right now, but even prior to Gascon, when Jackie Lacey was there, they didn't have the type of diversion programs that we have right now. And I think that. Am I okay with swallowing that? Sure, I'm okay with swallowing that until society shifts more to the way that I would like it to, and then we can maybe have a different conversation about what we expect from the DA's office. We just start having a conversation about ATJ. Now let's imagine what it looks like in 5-10 years. So I guess that's my opinion on that. In terms of the auditor, I'm not with Laura Dowd. I voted for Daniel Miles. Same sentiment. I think he was a candidate that is literally the only candidate. There's obviously a lot of money being filtered out of the system. There was a lot of I don't agree with the fact that
$1.6 million.
Say again?
$1.6 million.
Yeah, that's peanuts. That's peanuts compared to the hundreds of millions of dollars that we lost with these these public-private partnerships and
hospital.
Hospital,
yeah. Queen Mary.
You got the right last name, you'll get anything in the city. It seems like, So I don't know what the auditor is supposed to be doing, but I won't vote for that woman. I didn't vote for her. And then for the city attorney, I don't think that Ms. Shipsky is qualified. I voted for Don McIntosh. I don't think, and I also think that she lost credibility when for me personally, I was never going to vote for her. I'm just going to say, I'm not going to pretend like I was thinking about it. I never was going to vote for her. But she lost credibility for me as whatever populist, anti-establishment candidate that she alleges herself to be with when she left multiple races to get to the one she's in right now. That let me know that there are conversations being had offline that shifted her into the one that she's in. And I don't think that she's a qualified lawyer. So that's my opinion. So I didn't vote for her.
All right. Wow, I'm learning a lot. Thank you. No, you're educating me right now. You're making me rethink some things right now, Senay. So, okay, I'm gonna move us on. What you got? City Council districts 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. The only candidate that I'm like coming out for, that I'm like gung ho for, that I'm like my feet, the soles of my feet hurt for, is a City Council District 1, Mariela Salgado. That's it, right there. That's it. I gotta go get a new pair of walking shoes now.
I'll go first because I don't want Ben to always think that I gotta be. One, same as you, Salgado. 3, I have no bones to pick. I've only spoken to one person, which was Nima Novin. Mm-hmm. Seemed like a okay guy. I don't have an opinion about him. Mark Gillian, I would never support because he's a lobbyist. He's a registered lobbyist. And he's the boss of the mayoral candidate. So I don't even know how that's ethically possible. Just saying that. Number 5, I'm supporting Megan Kerr. I did good work with her when she was at school board. Number 7, I think if Carlos had took it serious, I would have endorsed him, but he didn't, so I won't endorse him. And so I endorse no one. And then number 9, I'm with Dr. Joni.
What's your thoughts, Ben?
I didn't have anybody in 1. Just wasn't familiar enough with the candidates there. 3, don't have strong feelings, but Kaylee Caruso was the one who stood out the most for me. CD5, the person I voted for is not going to win the race. I supported Linda Valdez. She's kind of your left candidate there, but it's going to come down to, probably Kerr versus what's the Republicans? I'm drawing a blank there, but
Patton.
Kerr, yeah,
Ian
so
Patton?
Kerr,
Ian Patton.
yeah, exactly that one. My neighbor has a yard sign. It's just like, ugh. So I mean, Kerr's gonna take that race. She's not bad. She's not great. She's a little too pro police, pro, bringing in big money for developers. Not a big fan, but she'll be quite fine. And currently, I've the current council member, because I live in CD5. It'll be good to see her gone. So that'll be nice. And then CD7, Carlos supporting him, but yeah, don't think he ran a serious enough race to have an impact there. And then CD9, Dr. Joni.
Wow. Folks, hope y'all taking notes. I got thoughts about some of them candidates. I'm going to keep mine to myself. I can't vote in any, well, I can vote in 7, and I know where I'm voting for 7. But the rest of them.
Who's that vote?
Yeah. Huh?
Who are you voting?
I ain't even gonna go in there because that's a fight that this calling in, and I'll be fighting with people for like the next 2 years. So we're gonna leave that right where it is. Okay, school board area 1 and 5.
Dr. Sharifa Batts.
Thoughts, Ben?
These are ones I wasn't very familiar with, so I just kind of went with the knockout A recommendation in District 1, Nubia Flores.
See, this race is very personal for me. So it's been, I've had an opportunity to work with Nubia, and I mean, I know she's a real deal when it comes to work, but the way the political alignment that happened with that, I'm having a really hard time. And as I see these different endorsements pop up, I'm like, what does that have to do with education? And I think that there's a certain level of politics that should not belong in our school board. But every time I see these different endorsements come up, I go, what does that have to do with serving our children? What does that have to do with connecting parents? Let's see, we got Dr. Batts. There was some things that just didn't connect for me, that were just really disconnected for me. And again, as someone who's like out there and like been going to all these school board meetings and talking to parents, there was a disconnect. There was a disconnect. I mean, just I had actually sent some folks to connect, and they called and they were like, Jerlene, that didn't go well. And I'm like, well, that was a missed opportunity. But it's in and then Maria Lopez, I think she's amazing. She got in the race really late. I know that she was doing things, around advocating for her kids, and she was fearless in that or whatever. Yet I know Nubia is going to win. Nubia will most likely win, I think, probably in the primary. There probably will not be a runoff just because the amount of money. I haven't looked at the financials, so I don't know what they look like, but I know that with many of those endorsements came something. I know that with the endorsements, especially of labor, that means there are people that could go out and walk. These school board districts are massive. They are massive. And at the end of the day, whoever it is, I just want someone that's actually going to be an advocate for children and an advocate for parents, and not an advocate for the district. Because what happens right now, and that was my issue with Kerr, is because she started out as an advocate for community, and somehow she became an advocate for the school district. And it's like, wait a minute, you forgot who you're supposed to be serving. You forgot. So whoever it is, they get to deal with me, because I ain't leaving. I'm gonna be showing up for those school board meetings. So whoever gets it, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. All right. This is it. This one right here. Y'all ready to throw down?
No.
We say the best for last. So now I don't all of a sudden get disconnected.
Yeah, I think my internet's going to go down here pretty soon. So.
I know, right? Like, what happened? Lost signal. I just know I want this race, the mayoral race, to be over with. That's all I know. We have this is the map behind me. Almost 500,000 people. I want somebody who's competent. And I just want this race to be over tomorrow. Go for it, Senay. You came out early. You came out early pledging a commitment to a candidate. Tell us who and why.
Well, I'm supporting Susie Price. If we're gonna be objective in terms of credentials, she's the most qualified. If we're gonna be subjective in terms of, and I have a perception of integrity that's different than others. Maybe I have to disagree with Councilwoman Price many times. She's never lied to me. The other mayoral candidate has lied to my face over a dozen times, and that's just that's not even a thought in mind. He's lied so many times that I don't trust anyone that promises me something that and then promises the same thing to every single other person in the same room. I don't trust anyone that says that. 1 minute you're progressive, next minute you're conservative. 1 minute you're interviewing to get the police union's endorsement. The other, you're BLM, defund the police. You know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily agree with overemphasis on public safety. Sure, that's my personal opinion, no doubt. But at least when somebody tells me where they stand, I have to come to, in community too. We have to come to, a conversation about what we can leverage to get the results that we want. I don't trust anyone that is a liar, and that other person is a liar. There's only one person that has me blocked on Facebook. I just want to say that.
Yeah. I have one candidate that's got me blocked on Facebook, but it's not the candidate that's got you blocked.
Yeah. In terms of policy, why I'm supporting the person, the number one reason. So I list the number one reason I'm supporting Susie Price is because she's qualified. The number two reason I'm supporting her, and this is for different reasons than other people in the city. But you know what? There's these weird times in history where, different groups believe in the same things. And one of those things is localized control of housing. I do not support SB9. I'm highly against it. Now, I'm highly against it for a different reason than maybe East Long Beach. But so what? If our elder white seniors are coming out to the front lines to fight something that's going to help the community that I live in, hey, more power to you. Let's align. It's all about actual alignment and getting results. For me, I live in an area that they want to concentrate poverty in, right? And they want to concentrate poverty, and they've maintained us as blighted in order to eat up, you have transit lines that go through you, right? So all these opportunity zones, they're in my neighborhood. They're not in these other parts of the city. So who's going to be targeted first? Who is rapid gentrification occurring to? It's occurring in my neighborhood. If you look at all the quote unquote affordable housing projects that have been built and greenlit in the last 5 years, 90% of them are in the 6th district. I do not agree with the fact that you're going to basically swamp my neighborhood with methadone clinics and transitional housing. I think that affordable housing in my neighborhood, what that looks like is either homeowner opportunities or pathways to home ownership, or a collective housing or condification of the apartments, and allowing opportunities like we had in the 80s when the sailors were here, where people can eventually have the opportunity to buy their apartments. We're not seeing that. You're saying, oh, look, we built the Project Beacon on Long Beach and PCH, right? Yeah, 40. Oh, sorry, that's Veteranas. They built it 46 units, right? Well, because of our lovely friends in the building trade who are hand in hand working with the developers, it's costing $700,000 a unit. That is not affecting the homelessness that is occurring in this city, and it's not scalable. How is it that you get 46 units for over $28 million? That is not scalable. That's not reality. And so when you're saying with SB9, yeah, we're going to knock down a single family home and we're going to build density on it, am I supposed to believe that without any tenant or affordable housing or inclusionary housing mandate, that I'm supposed to believe that affordable housing, which is a not-for-profit business model, that for-profit businesses are going to come into my community, in my neighborhood, and suddenly acquiesce and care about community? That's not realistic. Elliot, before he left, he was hinting at the downtown plan. We see what happened there. the irony of it is that all the quote unquote liberals of yesteryear, they pushed for that. And now we have 3,000 less children living in the downtown area because what's being developed? Market rate and luxury rate housing. So I'm supposed to believe that after seeing that happen, oh, okay, now they're doing the Midtown housing plan, right? My area will be different. And Rex with his area, look what you read the U plan. It's the same exact thing. It's just literally the same exact thing. So it doesn't surprise me that a local council person was the co-writer of SB9. That's something that's definitely never mentioned in the news. And so for me, when I saw the response that Susie Price wrote that letter, I was like, hey, you guys want it for different reasons, maybe, that don't agree with what I agree with, but I agree with we need to slow down housing. We need to slow down housing and have 20% inclusionary housing mandates on every single zoning plan that's coming up for grabs. If not, then no development. I'm fine with that. But, that's something that, that we have as community, we have to work on. And then last but not least, economics. I don't, I'm a very, socially liberal, progressive person, whatever these these code words mean these days. I don't really put much energy in I live in California. Maybe this is the beauty of being a California native. I don't really put much energy in worrying about, is abortion going to be taken away? Is immigration law suddenly going to become so heinous that no people come over? I just don't put energy into that because I'm naive, call it what it is, but I just don't think that the state of California, those things are really going to happen. The rest of the country, yes, of course, and it's tragic, and we should mobilize and fight against them. That said, we don't put nearly enough time. We don't put nearly enough time and energy into the economic framework of this city. How are locals going to stay in this city when all you're getting is gig economy jobs being brought into the city? We need someone that has some type of reality about what that framework looks like. I know for a fact that if McDonnell Douglas wasn't here in the 70s and 80s, that tens of thousands of black and brown people would have left this city much sooner than they are leaving now. They're leaving now because there's no jobs here. And we're going to have the same thing that our major metropolitan areas and other parts of the country are having, where the service class has to commute 4 hours a day into the city to work and then commute back into the boonies, which in this case will probably be Riverside or Inland Empire, because that's the only place they can afford. This is the last affordable city on the coast. And I think that in order for that to be maintained, we need jobs. We need living wage jobs being brought into the city. And I don't believe that, Rex Richardson is going to do that. I think that Susie Price is someone that a conversation can be had and a sense of understanding can be had about, yes, we need economic development, but we also need it to be contained with respect to maintaining the fabric of what this community looks like in the city, and also with relation to the jobs that people actually need, because we have enough delivery jobs in this city. Sorry,
you said a lot, and those are all things like conversations that need to continue. Yet, Ben, what are your thoughts? And then I have a question for both of you.
So I have to say I took the easy way out in the primary because this is going to come down to Price and Richardson. There's just no question about it at this point, right? So I voted for Raul Cedillo. He's a leftist candidate. He has zero chance of winning. But in a primary where I know that this is going to go to the general, sometimes I just vote on my ideology. If I believe that my vote would actually have an influence in that race, then maybe I would vote differently. But at this point, we kind of know what the outcome is here. Mm-hmm. They've raised way more money than anybody else. They've sucked up all the different endorsements. This is going down Price Richardson, right, in the general. So I voted for Cedillo. In the general, Senay just made some really good points. I think that I need to do some more research into it. My initial leanings are that, Susie Price coming up as a prosecutor, she is very much pro-police. She believes that we can solve a lot of our problems by adding to police budgets. She believes that one of the solutions to our unhoused populations is through by locking up people, by criminalizing being unhoused. It's in her, it's on her website under her different issues. So how the hell could I possibly support somebody who believes that? I can't. But has Rex put together a vision for the city that aligns with what I believe in? No. So, you know, it's difficult because I don't think we have a good candidate who's going to be in that top two who I could put my support behind. If I had to make a call at this very moment, I'd say, yeah, probably it's Rex who I'd support. But I think I need to do some real deep searching on this race. But we have time. We have till November because it's going to be the two of them.
Gavin Newsom.
Wait.
Gavin Newsom also supports criminalizing the homeless. That's what those care courts are. And, you know, the way that the state party goes, everyone else falls in line. Not that I'm rebutting you. I'm just bringing, you know, you said research. She's sex crimes. You know, I think that rapists and pedophiles should go to jail, or some type of confinement. Let's say I'll be PC and say confinement of some sort away from general population. I think that when people vote 9-0 when they're in committee to, you know, for the police budgets, when it's closed session and when they get in front of a camera or in front of the media and they try to align themselves with whatever progressive wave that polling has suggested that they should align themselves with, like I said, I don't trust people like that because they'll go the way that the wind goes. You know, we have somebody who pushed so much energy into getting a homeless shelter in their neighborhood because they know about optics. And then if you were to go to that homeless shelter right now, it's completely empty. So it's like, you know, I look at
photo op.
It's a photo op. It's a joke. So I look at websites and I think about what these REACH programs and the HEART programs that Susie's referencing in her you know, on her website and what the impact of those things are going to be. To your point about criminalization, because I don't agree with criminalizing people who live on the streets, but I cannot accept that we have to engage or agree with open air drug markets existing, because I live in a heavily crime infested area, and my neighbors, they hate when I go out of town because they know when I leave that people who are going to shoot up and do drugs 2 blocks away from the local elementary school are going to magically appear, and no one's going to respond to it because it's this kind of, you know, because the Boise that decision that the circuit court had, that, you know, no one can do anything. And I don't think that elderly and children should not have quality of life just because we can't figure out a way as a society to engage with homeless people outside of putting them in jail. And so I look to Susie as having a realistic and more pragmatic response, not necessarily the best response, but the most realistic one about getting those 2,000 bodies off of the streets versus, you know, the man of the North who says, hey, go to Atlantic Housing, when you go to Atlantic Housing right now, there's nobody in there.
Yeah. There's a lot of folks, if you're watching, if you made it this far and you're watching, you know, drop your pick in the comments of you know, who's getting your mayoral vote. Just listening to the conversations that have been happening, especially this whole pro-police thing. Again, I asked the question, well, what does that mean? What does it mean to be pro-police? I know that when I call 911, I want the police to answer. I know I'm anti police brutality. I am anti 40+% of our budget going to law enforcement. I'm anti a PD officer working a 2-hour shift because I know that they're not going to be able to properly serve me. But I know that when I dial 911, I want someone to come and answer. So I'm like, does that make me pro-police? And also, it just seems like it's a moot point at this point because the only candidate that did not say they would hire more police was Cedillo. He was the only candidate that did not. And even if you go to Richardson's page on public safety, paragraph number 2, he says he's going to hire more police. So it's really interesting when I hear people say, I'm like, are they even paying attention? Are they reading? And I mean, even what you just said, Senay, about the whole 9-0 vote, they all voted for that.
Yeah.
Nobody had was like, I'm gonna stand on my own and vote against it. They all voted for it. The whole thing, also the comment that was made about the prosecutor thing, it's interesting. And my thoughts on that, we go to school, right? We go to school, we get our little high school degree, our high school diploma. We're told to go to college, get a good job. And some people choose different career paths. And it's interesting how I hear people like, well, she's a prosecutor. Well, she went to school and she got that good job, right? So it's like we can't have it both ways. And I hear that not just with in the mayoral race, I hear it in other races where people are like trying to diminish people because they decided to go a certain career path. But it's like that's contradictory to what we've been taught. So I got all those thoughts in my head. I am in agreement with the whole prediction. I mean, come tomorrow night, this is what we will most likely see. I personally wanted to be over with. I'm hoping I want it to be over with. And then the whole conversation about the housing, that whole density thing, because that's something that's been coming up in some of the other races. The one with Ian Patton, someone was like, oh, he's anti-density. Well, I'm anti-density too, because I know that when you bring in density, you have a lack of parking, you have an increase of crime, and then if we don't have the enough law enforcement to just be available for our communities, then we're impacted differently. So anyway, that was my brain dump on that. Anything else? What are your thoughts? Still on this mayoral race, what you are seeing? I personally think that this race is creating a lot of division in our city.
I think the division already existed. It's just people are getting paid to rifle it up. In offline, me and you talk very much about the certain people that are getting paid. I mean, this is the thing. Most people that engage in politics, locally speaking, they are either operatives, they're paid staffers or consultants, or they're well-meaning, do-gooders, right? It's very rarely that like regular people, and you know what I mean by regular people, like somebody walking down the street is like, "Hey, what's your politics?" And you're like, "Oh, I don't." They're like, if you ask them, they're like, "Oh, is the election going on?" You know what I mean? So it's like this Facebook nonsense. Like I have to I don't want to sound like I'm privileged because I've actually been in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the room with the hotel nonsense. That was nonsense. That was outright nonsense. And the fact that that's even coming up now, like you're weaponizing and it's historical revisionism. They're basically trying to say that women are only getting raped in non-union hotels. I'm sorry, I thought women get sexually attacked everywhere.
Anywhere.
So somebody, come on, man. It's like we know what that game was. It was a certain union that was imposing territorial rights on who works with them and who doesn't. So if you don't work with us, you need to get the panic buttons. If you do work with us, don't worry about the panic buttons. Oh, you don't care about women because you don't care that our clientele of the people that are trying to create a local are, come on, man. Like, I'm not playing. I'm not in labor. So this is my thing. Like, I understand the game. There's nothing wrong with playing the game, but it's the game. So you have to recognize it as the game and stop trying to, sway and make people come off as they're anti-woman, they're racist, they're this, they're
lazy.
All these lazy. It's lazy and it's deceitful, and it's outright lying because if I'm not mistaken, the Hilton Foundation just gave a bunch of money to the city of Long Beach. Isn't that one of the hotels that we're supposed to be boycotting because they don't believe in the panic buttons? but then wasn't it a 9-0 vote? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean about, like, just the reality of, like, these games. I remember the LUE conversation. I remember who was pushing for height until Robert Fox and them came up there to North Long Beach and said no. I remember, like, you can't then come and like the conversation. Oh, okay, let me check the polling and see which way to vote and which way to come. I remember what the conversations about bringing that library up there, and bringing that fire station up there. There was no conversation about a pool. My people don't swim. We don't forget that. Come on, don't play the game. Because if you're not gonna sway me. I'm not a part of the Democratic clubs for this reason. Like, I sympathize with these people because it's groupthink, and I think that it's deceitful to the people that we allege that we represent. You guys represent so many people. Why you can't bring more voters to the ballots? You go to PCC campus right now. They know this hat in my face because that's how many people we're bringing in there every day to vote. To vote, however they want to vote, but to vote. These people are alleged themselves to be leaders in the community. They got 50 million endorsements, but can't bring nobody to the ballots. So what does that say? Your community doesn't exist. You don't actually represent the city. So when I look at like how they sway these like ASB conversations, I'm like, I'm out of high school, man. I'm just look. I want 20% inclusionary housing mandates. I want people in my community. I know density means luxury rate units. So, you know, you're not going to sway me with the Politricks and the rephrase words. And I made a personal decision.
Someone it posted this, how all homeowners are anti-Disney for self-interest. Well, my thought is if a person pays $800,000 for a home in a single family resident, then they should get what they pay for. So that's again, it's contradictory to what we're taught about. You go to school, you get your good job, you buy you a house.
Hold on, because like, I don't want to be rude. This is your show.
I want raw conversation. Oh no. And then I had a couple more questions and then we can start wrapping up. But say what you got to say, because right now, like I said, this is I think what's happening right now, we need to be having these conversations on a regular basis, because just in the conversation that I've had, with you, Ben, and Elliot, I'm having to rethink a few things, because I've learned a few things just in this conversation where I'm going to have to, a couple folks I thought I was going to vote for, I may have to switch up. I'm glad I haven't filled out the little bubble sheet yet. So drop it. What you got?
I just want to say that there's a lot of nonprofits in the nonprofit industrial complex that are outright deceiving community and not doing what they're alleged themselves to be doing. You can pull up my Carfax, 2015, 2016, 2017. I'm talking collective housing. I'm talking inclusionary housing mandate. I'm using real numbers. There's a zoning plan right now going on in the Anaheim corridor. I'm the only person saying we need mandates. Presence, we need mandates. We need community benefits agreements. There's housing people that are having that conversation, that allege themselves to be housing people, that are saying that that's egregious to the developers. That's what I mean about the ASB, the groupthink. There's people out here that are misrepresenting the future of what the city looks like. You know what I mean? Because, they socialize together offline. I don't care about socializing. I live in a neighborhood I was born and raised in. I live in a neighborhood that my mother and my grandmother grew up in. So the idea that, hey, just say, you just say whatever you want and then hope for the best. Like, no, we need concrete tenant protections and we need concrete pathways to home ownership for a variety of people, Black, white, Latino, and otherwise. But we're not just going to sit here and say, hey, 6% is enough because this candidate aligns with whatever grants that your nonprofit gets. No, I'm sorry, that's not enough. And if that hurts and that rubs people the wrong way, go do something about it. But the reality of the matter is, like, we have a certain amount of renters because it was affordable to be a renter. Now that it's not affordable to be a renter, we need to start creating realistic pathways in order to have some type of equity so that the people that are from the working class communities have leverage in terms of where the community goes. Again, I have to say, there are a lot of people from the nonprofit elements who believe in voter suppression. See, they only talk about voter suppression when it's in the South and it's one of these other areas where you can have this binary of Republican, white Republicans, Black Democrats. But we have voter suppression in this area. We have ample voter suppression in this area. You only had 2,200 people vote in North Long Beach in the last council race. We only have we only have 9% turnout in a state that is has an ultra majority, one party. So what does that suggest? If you can bring out millions of people for a recall, but you can't bring them out for a local race, that means you don't want people to show up. And if everyone who doesn't show up votes one way, and you're alleging yourself to be the architects and path, the leaders of that party, to me, that suggests that you don't want your quote unquote own people to vote. But these are the kind of conversations that we can have in public because people want to drink the Kool-Aid and not ruffle feathers. That's why I don't come on these programs too much because people try to get you unemployed and look for your LinkedIn and try to get you flipped.
I want to agree with Senay on this. Like the voter turnout for the recall election, the establishment had a very specific thing that they wanted to happen, and they turned out voters like just unbelievable numbers. Now we're here in what's supposed to be a really important primary election. The numbers are abysmal, just horrendous right now. Now, hopeful people will be turning in some ballots over these next couple of days, but we're in the single digits on ballots being returned for young voters and voters of color, and it's insane. So obviously the system is capable of turning out these voters, and when they're not turning out, it's very clear that that there's disenfranchisement happening. There's suppression happening here. And there's also a general lack of excitement in the prospects of a lot of these people who are running, So it's the whole thing's completely disappointing. And this has been this entire process has been one of the most depressing elections I've gone through. So don't have a lot of hope right now. So,
well, listen to you all. You have given me some hope, and you let me know that I'm not the only person thinking about these things. But we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up because we've been going strong for about an hour and a half now. So, and I know we didn't set any time frame or anything. Tomorrow, we will tomorrow this time. The numbers are going to be rolling in, and I know I plan on doing some watch hopping. I haven't done that in a very long time, so I'm gonna do some watch hopping and hop from place to place and just connect with people. But tomorrow we'll start to know what's next.
You can find me at the gas lamp celebrating in the primary straight win.
You just gonna be there all night?
Oh no, I'm gonna bounce around, but you'll find me there.
Okay. All right. Senay's gonna be at the gas lamp.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pass through. I'm trying to find somebody to roll with me so I could do this little hop. Folks, if you've been watching, please give a thumbs up, put your comments, engage in the conversation in the comments. There's a lot of conversations going on. This is being streamed to 3 different places: my personal page, my page, and YouTube. Share it to some of the political groups. Have a conversation. Take the time to learn from each other because we get stuck in our thoughts and we think, well, this is was it our righteous thoughts. Sometimes our righteous thoughts aren't that right. So take the time to learn from someone else. And then let's figure out how we can engage in this conversation over the next few months as we lead into the general. Although I just hope that all of these races end tomorrow. That's my prayer, that they all end tomorrow, that the people be like 52% all across. Of course, for the candidates that I'm in favor of. Any last thoughts before we sign off? Go ahead, Ben.
I just wanted to thank you for your time, and I learned a lot. And Senay, thanks for all of your insight. I learned a lot from you tonight as well. Just hopefully we get some good out of this election, and we learn some things, and then we move on to the general. So thanks again for having me.
I appreciate you, Jerlene, for having us. This was a long and much needed conversation. Some people are leaders some people are Black leaders, and some people are leaders who happen to be Black. If you're a person that subscribes to identity politics, you need to be able to discern what's the difference. That's the first thing I'll say. The second thing I'll say is I think that my personal politics and the politics that I engage with publicly sometimes are in alignment and sometimes are not. I think that what's most important to community is that we deliver on the results that will help increase their quality of life. It's not about me getting a job, you getting a job, you getting placed on this committee, that person getting placed on that commission. It's about public service.
Public
And
service.
people who have delusions of grandeur, people who are, they'll sacrifice you on the climb up, or not to be empowered. And sometimes as community, we have to align together with unlikely allies to make sure that the needs of our communities are being served. I live in the building that I grew up in. I live on the street that I grew up in. Nobody's moving me out of my area. And I want my community to represent what it represented when I was a kid and what it represents now, which is gay people, Salvadorians, Mexicans, Cambodians, Pacific Islanders, poor whites. I want that. How that looks like when I look outside the window, I want it to look like today. And I know that in order to maintain that sometimes you got to cross over the aisle and make some deals and leverage. And that's what this race really is about. And anyone who's saying otherwise is delusional and is trying to play a trick on you. And so just be mindful. Just be mindful, because everybody asks for the same money, and when they don't get the money, then they're against it, right? So just be mindful of the two-faced, split-tongued snake people, and get involved, and get involved. I think Ben and his program, what he does, I'm in alignment with. Elliot, I know he was mad that I made a little environmental jab. I love him. Earth Day. I'm in alignment with him. We all come together as brothers and sisters in making this world better. And we all have different pathways to getting there. But the ultimate goal is that we come to agreement at the end of the road and say, hey, we did what we could to make this city better. So that's what I'm about.
Woohoo! Thank you. All politics are local, people. That's all I'm gonna say. All politics are local. Folks that are watching, thumbs up, drop a comment. Thank you to Senay, Ben, Elliot for joining. Let's do this again. And let's keep engaging in conversation. And maybe we can actually have this conversation in person one day. All right. Take care. Have a good night. Don't drop out of the studio. Stay for a moment.